IU dominated Indiana State on Friday night, and what was an expected outcome, but it's Tayven Jackson who comes away as the biggest winner on the evening.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. Friday night, if you're watching live, Saturday, Sunday, if you're listening or watching over the weekend, you are Locked On Hoosiers, the one and only daily IU podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Appreciate you guys tuning in, especially to the live show. Hope to do this some more this season. Games. It's a little bit of awkward timing with IU playing on Friday night, but appreciate you guys joining us as always. If you guys went to the game tonight, I hope you used the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I think most of us expected this game to be a blowout, and it was. Things got a little weird in that second quarter, but ultimately, Indiana State never really did anything on the night. But the biggest takeaway from this one is that Tayven Jackson's the quarterback of the future for this team. He made a pretty definitive statement in this one and comes away from the game. I think this quarterback battle is over. We'll see what Tom Allen says. We're recording this before he talks even to the media after the game. I don't know that he would say anything tonight to anything too definitive, but this one's over, in my opinion. Tayven Jackson is your quarterback of the future. Overall, the offense looked a lot different. I want to talk about the quarterback battle first. There's a lot of positives to talk about from this one. Look, week one was rough. We expected it to be rough. You feel a lot better about Indiana coming out of this game, but you got to meet somewhere in the middle because Ohio State's a top 5, top 10 team in the country this season. Indiana State is like a bottom 5, bottom 10 FCS team this season. So somewhere in the middle is where this IU team will fall, but you certainly feel good about things after this one. Let's talk quarterbacks. I mean, it was apparent early on there was a lot more freedom in this offense. I have a feeling, and I mean, I kind of feel this way now. We're going to look back at that week one game and just wonder what in the world, what happened? What was the IU coaching staff doing? It felt weird in the moment. And looking at how Indiana played tonight, not even just from like a results perspective, but a process and a play calling perspective, that was so much better. I have so much more optimism in what this team can be with with what IU did tonight versus the heavy option offense that they ran last week. But there was much more freedom. Tayven started the game. That was expected. We knew what that was going to look like. And as I'm talking, you guys share in the comments below if you're watching the live stream what your thoughts are on the quarterback battle. Did Tayven do enough tonight to win the competition? Who should start next week? Tayven came out looking great. There was a very clear difference in how IU was approaching this game. There was no pitter-patter, as Walt Bell, the phrase he used after that week one performance. There was no pitter-patter. There was a lot of quick passes. Tayven, they moved him out of the pocket early on. I thought they did a really good job of getting him into a rhythm early, and it paid off because he looked like he was in a rhythm throughout the night, which is hard to do when he played the first quarter. I think it might have been like a drive into the second quarter and then sat, and Brendan Sorsby came in and played for the rest of that half. But when Tayven came back in the third quarter, he still looked like he was in a rhythm. He looked comfortable. He looked more We are back. Sorry, even the internet doesn't want Friday night football. But I thought what was interesting about Indiana coming out and getting Tayven into a rhythm early on is that the gap between Sorsby and Tayven, I guess one of the big differences was that Sorsby is supposed to be a better passer, and I think ultimately he probably is. But when you got Tayven in a rhythm, he made some incredible throws. His best throw of the night was the one down the sideline that got called back on an ineligible receiver downfield, and he dropped that one in. I believe it was Cam Camper. He dropped it in and was a terrific throw, but he made a number of really good throws in this one. Again, 18 of 21, 236 yards, and looked really confident. What mattered most is that he led a number of scoring drives, and that's what Tom Allen said he wanted to see from these guys, is to lead those scoring drives. To that wasn't something Indiana did, just not even a scoring drive, but just have a sustained drive. And I thought the one in the third quarter where IU went, I want to say it was 93 yards, it was 90 plus yards. That to me, the competition was over. It was done. Tayven won it. That was a really good drive. And granted, there were a number of third downs picked up on the ground, but the offense as a whole just looked better with Tayven on the field. And I thought that was evident throughout the night. And I would say, talking about Brendan Sorsby, I don't think he played bad. I thought he made some nice throws, some nice reads. Unfortunately, a number of those were dropped. He had a couple of throws that were the right read to the right guy, and it hit their hands and they didn't catch it. And maybe if a couple of those they hang on to, it's a bit more of an interesting battle. I know that the one they highlighted on the broadcast was Omar Cooper in the corner of the end zone. I thought that might have been a little overblown that he gave up on the route. He slowed down a little bit. I don't know that it was kind of a guaranteed touchdown as they indicated, but it was those types of things throughout the night where he finishes 9 of 16. It could have easily been, 10, 11, 12 of 16 for, instead of 108 yards, maybe it's 130 or 140 yards. And maybe he does have that touchdown, and maybe it is a little bit more of a debate. But I think it was just kind of him being a victim of circumstance. It wasn't really out of his control. I thought he played well. He ran the ball well, six carries for 28 yards. Look, it's interesting because the knock on Tayven was that he doesn't throw the ball as well. He goes for 236 yards, 18 of 21, as we said. The knock on Brendan was that he doesn't run the ball as well, and he has 6 carries for 28 yards, which isn't a lot, but it's enough it keeps defenses honest. Ultimately, all this comes with a bit of an asterisk that it was against Indiana State, but I think Tayven comes away from this one feeling really good, and I'd be really surprised if they did not name him the starting quarterback on Monday when Tom Allen has his press conference. Again, let me know what you guys think. Is Tayven your guy? Should he be QB1 moving forward? The offense as a whole had a really good showing. There's a number of guys I wanted to highlight. There's a long list. So we're going to touch on a number of guys. I've seen comments on some guys you want to talk about as well. We're going to dive into all of them here in a moment. Let's talk about one of our sponsors real quick, though, Nutrafol. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair, no drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. And it works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months taking Nutrafol men's hair growth supplements. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled NUTRAFOL. betdream.com/min. Enter the promo code LockedOnCollege. College football season is here, guys. If you guys did not see earlier today, Locked On is kicking up its coverage with Locked On College Football Live each Friday. They'll go live 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on every Locked On College YouTube channel, including here on Locked On Hoosiers. They'll cover everything from playoff implications, conference rivalry games, in-depth analysis like only Locked On can provide. Every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't want to miss it. Let's talk offense. And one of the first things I agree with right here, Jaylin Lucas needs all the carries is my takeaway. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I said during the fall camp, during the preseason, he should be having 20 touches a night. He should be in on 3/4 of the snaps, not necessarily touching the ball in 3 of them, but just on the field for 3/4 of the snaps. On Friday, he has 10 rushes, 4 catches. He didn't play for a chunk of the fourth quarter, but he was electric. His first 2 rushes, 25-yard touchdowns, both of them. He ends the night with 88 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 39 yards receiving. He had that wild one-handed catch mixed in there as well. Jaylin Lucas has a speed, a gear that he can get to that nobody else can get to. And that was very evident. I kind of said that, again, Ohio State has the athletes that can match up with that. Indiana State was nowhere in the same ballpark. So he got on the edge more. He got to the outside more. Even on the runs up the middle, he was able to take it outside and beat guys to the corner and get around them. You saw on especially that second touchdown run, he was patient. He gets through the middle and then gets to the outside and uses that. I'm very excited to see him this season and looking forward to what he can do against more and more competition. They're going to scout for him. Indiana's going to have some variation to their offense. The good news is everyone running the ball tonight looked really good. Jaylin Lucas had 88 yards and a couple touchdowns. Josh Henderson, 12 carries, 60 yards and a touchdown. Christian Turner had 3 carries, 11 yards and a touchdown. Sorsby, we mentioned. Trent Howland got in at the end. Tayven had 6 carries for 9 yards and a touchdown. And I thought everybody in the running game looked good. Henderson had some really good runs, some really impressive runs, had a couple third down conversions that were really important. And I don't have Twitter pulled up. I'm scared to pull it up and ruin my internet, which is really struggling. I appreciate you guys still hanging around. But somebody on Twitter said that Henderson and Lucas should be called Zoom and Boom, and I am all the way here for it. Berserker Jumps on Twitter is the one that said it. Zoom and Boom, 100%. That is what they looked like tonight. So that running game looked really good. The offensive line, again, another hats off to them. They end the game with, I believe, only 1 sack allowed. I wrote it down before the final whistle, but I believe they only allowed 1 sack. They did not allow a quarterback hit. That's how you should be playing against Indiana State. And that's, again, what they looked really good in this one. They were opening up big holes. There was some frustrating penalties and eligible players downfield. You got to get those ironed out. I'm hoping that was just kind of those learning pains as you're going along early in the season. Ultimately, Indiana had 5 penalties for 40 yards on offense, and 2 of them were for ineligible guys downfield. That's just kind of the nature when you have an option offense. Both of them look like plays in which the lineman thought that it was going to be a run and it ended up being a pass. you'll get that ironed out, but get it ironed out quick because penalties were a big issue in this one. Lucas inside the tackles a lot, it seemed. I think Henderson would be used more in that role, Turner as well. It is interesting that how much they're willing to run him between the tackles. Admittedly, I don't love it. I understand why they do it. If you're strictly running Lucas on the edges, then teams are going to kind of hone in on that. So running him between the tackles is something you're going to have to do. The way they've done it, I think, makes sense. They're not putting him in like halfback dive situations, even running between the tackles. He's running between the guard and the tackle and not the guard and the center, basically. So he has that ability to kind of bounce it out to the edge. But yeah, I'm surprised at how often they're using him in between the tackles, because I mean, if you think back to last season, that was one of the reasons they gave for not using him as much, is that they didn't think he could be a part of every play that IU wanted to run. And then you get to this season and it's just, he's suddenly able to do that. I won't complain too much about last season, but I'm fine with how they're doing it now, just so long as his body can hold up to that as well. The wide receivers, some good news, some bad news in this one. Cam Camper looked fantastic in the amount of time he played because he went out with an injury. Now, it looked like he was bouncing up and down on the sideline, and it didn't seem like he was hurt, but it was a leg injury, and with him just coming back from his torn ACL, that just raises alarm bells. Hopefully he's okay. EJ Williams, though, another guy who looked good, had a 10-yard reception. He went out, I believe, after that reception, holding his hand, and there were reporters saying that he had a wrap on his hand post-game, so we'll see what the status is there. The good news is, and we talked about this during fall camp, the wide receiver room is very deep, and Omar Cooper Jr. with a breakout performance in this one, 7 receptions, 101 yards. He was a big get on the recruiting trail last season for Indiana. They had to hang on to him late, and he showed why he was so important. And he looked really good, I thought, in this one, and hopefully can factor into the plays, the season moving forward, because he looked really good. He's really talented. He's someone a lot of people wanted. Donovan McCauley, possibly, this feels weird to say, 4 catches, 58 yards, probably his best game as a wide receiver. Good. You better be showing something at this point, but I thought he looked good. He looked a little more natural out there, was targeted 7 times. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come. But Indiana's receivers, I thought, stepped up 344 yards through the air. And Cooper had 101 of them, and nobody else had more than 58. So a lot of guys making a lot of catches. McCauley, 4 for 58. Lucas, 4 for 39. Henderson, 3 for 55. He had 115 yards from scrimmage. And this one, Camper had 3 for 37 in the catch of the night with that diving catch. DeQuise Carter, 2 for 16. Bamba, 2 for 16, nearly had a touchdown. So a lot of guys stepping up, a lot of weapons the Hoosiers had receiving in this one. So a lot of positives in that regard in this one. The defense was dominant once again and looked really, really, really good. Let's talk about them and special teams. Some good, some bad with that one. IU has a lot to figure out on special teams. We'll do that here in a moment. We mentioned them at the top. Game Time. If you guys went to the game tonight, I hope you use Game Time. Even last minute, as you're driving into Bloomington, Game Time is the best place to find those last minute deals. Their app is super easy to use. I enjoy it a lot because it shows you what the view from your seats is going to be. They have flash deals, the last minute tickets. You don't have to plan months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And spoiler, that's more than IU's tickets, especially tonight. I know they were a lot less than $20. You can get more money back than the tickets are going to cost. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's talk about that defense. And we're looking at a really good defense here, guys. I pause because this is again against Indiana State, but they held them to 93 total yards, and 67 of those came in the one drive in the second quarter where, I don't know, the vibes of the game kind of felt weird, and it was right after or right around the time of that fumble return for a score, and things got a little weird there. Outside of that one drive that accounted for 67 yards, Indiana State had 26 total yards. Otherwise, it was dominant. And so a lot of guys you can highlight. Tell me below while I highlight guys who stuck out most to you, because there could be anybody's pick. Philip Dunham, he had the interception last week. He was all over the place this week. The secondary is maybe the most impressive part of this defense so far, because they had the biggest question mark coming into this season. I don't think anybody expected Philip Dunham, Lewis Moore, James Bonds III, Nicholas Toomer, Jamari Sharp. A lot of these guys, we didn't even know what role they were going to have. And some of them you might not even knew who they were, 2.5 weeks ago before the season started. These guys, we talked about what they did against Ohio State and Marvin Harrison Jr., and now you see them continue to make plays. Dunham led the team in tackles with 8. Lewis Moore had 4. A number of guys. Nicholas Toomer was the one who had the interception on that throw in the end zone. That was truly just an awful throw. I'm not even entirely sure who he was aiming for, but it was truly an awful throw that Toomer picks off in the end zone. Aaron Casey, again, 7 tackles, a pass breakup in this one. He looked incredible, but your two biggest, definitely your number one biggest physically and figuratively player, Andre Carter, man. We spoke about him last week. 4 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. He's an absolute handful. The defense is really encouraging, as Andy said. I was very unsure, but they've done well so far. Do you think the offense today will generalize going forward? Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. I do have some thoughts about the offense, but yeah, the defense, again, we talked about it. There was Aaron Casey and the name I'm blanking on, the Husky for Indiana, were the only two that we knew were going to be coming back. Noah Pierre was the other one. Sorry, I blanked on his name for a second. Were the only two we knew were coming back, and everybody else was, I don't want to say a question mark. We knew guys like Andre Carter were going to start, but nobody, it was all new players after that. So to see this defense immediately gel like this, really, really impressive work by the coaching staff. Lanell Carr had a 1.5 tackles for loss and a sack. Tom Allen mentioned him in the preseason as someone who was going to be a factor in this one. Philip Bleedy had a half a tackle for loss. Probably was offsides on that play, but someone that that has continued to look really good. So a lot of guys have stuck out in this one, and I'm continually impressed by Carter. Marcus Burris Jr. had a sack. Ray Stewart had a sack at the very end as well. On the offense, I don't know. I right now, my thought is that they just went super conservative in the opener, over the top conservative. I think the offense is going to look a lot more like tonight than it did in that opener, especially with how Tayven threw the ball tonight. He's not going to have a game where he throws it 5 times again this season. And again, I think we're going to look back on that game and just be absolutely bamboozled by what in the world the coaching staff was doing, which is frustrating because that was as good of a chance as we're going to have to beat Ohio State. That's as good of a chance as we've had in years to beat Ohio State. But I think the offense is going to look a lot more like this, in which the run game was really good, 214 yards on the ground, but you're able to throw the ball as well. It's not going to be almost 600 yards of offense. I'd be surprised if Indiana got to that again, but 37 passes, 42 rushes, that feels kind of what the balance is going to be. Probably run the ball a little bit more. You're going to have option plays, RPO, zone read, stuff like that. But you're going to be able to rely on the passing game a little bit more, I think. So we'll see how it goes. Louisville's going to be the big test. They're somewhere in the middle between Ohio State and Indiana State. We're going to find out a lot, I think, next week about this team, and that'll be really telling. But that's for next week. Last thing, special teams. Good Lord. What in the world was going on? There were so many frustrating penalties. Running into the kicker twice. There was a muffed punt on one of those, Jaylin Lucas. An absolute mess with the penalties tonight, and they were frustrating ones. The running into the kickers are dumb. Andre Carter had the one that he was kind of blocked into him. He could have pulled up. The other one, they weren't even really close to blocking it. They run into him. You have offsides where they were trying to time the snap and they didn't get it. The pass interference was whatever. It didn't look like a catchable ball, but whatever. The two ineligible downfields are completely self-inflicted. False starts. It was a lot of things that were self-inflicted. Oh, the kick catch interference. I knew there was another one. Why were you barreling down on him to that degree? You had two guys there and there were a crowd of people around him already. Why were you barreling down like that out of control? And so, again, I haven't seen Tom Allen's comments after the game. I'm sure he is not happy with the special teams. He wasn't happy with them last week, and they didn't look great in fall camp, going back even further than that. So there's a lot to get fixed on special teams. That was your big negative coming away from this one, but it's a lot better to fix those negatives off a win. And the Hoosiers have that. You can now rest easy on Saturday and watch some college football, watch some Big Ten football, scout the opponent. I believe Louisville actually played tonight as well, so I don't know that you can scout next week's opponent, but watch some Big Ten football. As always, guys, thank you for making us your first listen. If you made us your first listen at 10:30 at night, thank you, but I don't know why. But thank you for joining this live show. I will try to get my internet fixed. We will get that fixed for the next one. Every day or it's next week, there's going to be a lot to talk about. I didn't even mention IU basketball. The Montverde trio is on campus. There were pictures of them. Anything we hear about that, we'll talk about them. And then IU football, we'll figure out if they have their quarterback decision made moving forward. Follow us on Twitter if you haven't already, at @LO_Hoosiers, on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast at as well. Appreciate you guys again for tuning into this live stream. We'll be doing it more moving forward, so be sure you guys are subscribed and ready to do that after games this season. As always, guys, I hope you have a great Friday, a great weekend, and most importantly, LEO.